Welcome to What's the Tea with divine due diligence. Thanking God for lessons learned through time and experience.
Hello, everyone. This is Divine Due Diligence here, coming on tonight to continue with the chakra systems. So without further ado, I am going to actually start where I left off with the Sacral Chakra. Remember, we have to be aligned. We have to be balanced. We have to be really in tune with God. In order to start the alignment, we have to align these chakras. Again, according to start aligning with God, we have to allow our inner self, our inner man, to be aligned with Him. If we are not aligned in Him, we are out of balance. And God said that He is not the author of confusion. Being out of balance is confusion. You don't know what's going on with you. So let's start. So the deep dive, how sexual trauma impacts the sacral center. Neurologically, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, with biblical alignment. Sacral chakras is sexual trauma uniquely affected the sacral dimension because it strikes and at the intersections of the body, intimacy, pleasure, identity, and trust. Neurologically, it impacts what happens in the brain. Sexual trauma is perceived as a survival threat. I'm going to say that again. Sexual trauma is perceived as a survival threat. The nervous system shifts from connection to protection. It's processed like this, y'all. It's perceived and it's processed to be a survival threat. Okay. The threat circuit acts to activate the fear center. It becomes hyporeactive. Memory interrogation may fragment the memory, which is hippocampus. The first one is amygdala. Prefrontal cortex is the reasoning why, which is goes offline during overwhelming. This creates flashbacks, hypovigilance, disassociation, emotional numbness. Research on the trauma shows trauma memories are often stored in the body based on patterns in the sensory, not coherent, navigated form. The body keeps the score. Because sexual trauma involves physical violation, the body may store tension in the hips and the pelvic floor, developing chronic guardian in the lower abdominal area. Associated also with arousing with danger. The nervous system may shift into hypersexual, which is anxiety, impulsively, compulsively, sexually. Hypoarousal is numbness, low libido, and shutting down. Hormonal and stress effects. Chronic trauma activates the HPA axis. Elevated cortisol, disruption of estrogen, testosterone, and balance. Menstrual cycle is irregulated or low libido changes. The libido changes. Emotionally and attachments impact. Sexual trauma damage it from trust, safety, invulnerability, emotional boundaries, and your self-worth. Attachment on research shows trauma, especially relations trauma, can create avoidance attachment, that's emotional withdrawal, anxiety attachment, that means clinging, fear of abandonment, disorganization attachment, push-pull patterns. Common emotional consequences is shame, it was my fault, guilt, fear of pleasure, difficulty receiving love, confusion between lust and love. Shame is partially power because it targets identity, not behavior. Physical manifestations in the sacral region. Common body basis symptoms is pelvic floor dysfunction, pain during intimacy, lower hip and back tightness, chronic bladder issues, reproduction health disruption. Trauma informs pelvic therapy resources from or confirms that stored fear can cause persistent muscular contraction in the pelvic basis. Spiritual impact this does. Wounding of covenants and identity. Sexual trauma does more than injure the body. It can distort the spiritual perception. 1. Distorting view of self. Feeling unclean. Believing you are damaged goods. Confusing self-worth with sexuality. Biblically corrections. Psalms 34 and 5. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. Distorted view of God. Difficulty trusting God for protection. Anger towards God. Feeling spiritual distance between and during intimacy. Biblical grounding. Isaiah 61 and 3. He gives beauty for ashes. Romans 8 and 1. There is no condemnation for those in Christ. Covenant confusion. Sexual trauma can entangle sex with power and steady love. It's a lot of times that we misconstrue this information because of the trauma that we go through. Associated desires with shame create sexual fragmentation, body versus soul split. But scripture affirms integrated embodiment. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, 19 through 20. Your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. Psalms of Solomon celebrate mutual covenant, intimacy without shame. Hi, Crystal. Trauma, memory, and body memory. Sexual trauma may resurface through triggers of sensations, emotional flooding, sudden shutdown during safe intimacy. This happens because in the amygdala stores threats cures. The hippocampus may not properly timestamp the event as past. The body reacts from conscious thinking. Healing requires top-down cognitive and bottom-down somatic integration. How healing restores the sacral dimension. Neurologically, healing. Trauma therapy, EMDR, somatic experience, gratitude explosion in safe contexts. Breath work to calm the vagus nerve, self-reality, or relative experiences that rewire attachments. Physical healing, pelvic floor therapy, gentle hip opening movement, nervous system regulation, slow breathing and grounding. Emotional healing, naming shame and rejection, false guilt, rebuilding boundaries, learning to discuss safety versus unsafety intimacy. Spiritual healing, renouncing shame, agreements, inviting Christ into traumatic memories, reclaiming body as holy, receiving grace over self-condemnation, biblically, restoration. Joel 2:25, I will restore the years that the locusts have eaten. John chapter 7, verse 38, rivers of living water flow from within. Interrogating understanding. Sexual trauma impacts the sacral center by rewiring fear circuits in the brain, disrupting hormonal and nervous systems balancing, damaging attachments and identity, distorting spiritual perception of intimacy. But healing restores safety into the body, clean joy without guilt, covenant basics of intimacy, emotional regulations, a redeemed identity. So a lot of us have suffered from traumatic experiences, from unwanted sex from unwanted people. So this is one of the things that is highly recommended that you balance, come in balance with it, okay? The difference between trauma bonding and godly covenant bonding. How generational sexual trauma patterns form and break. First, trauma bonding versus godly covenant bonding. What is trauma bonding? Trauma bonding is a psychological attachment formed through cycles of abuse, fear, intimate reward, and emotional dependence. It is not love. It is nervous system survival attachments. Neurologically, trauma bonding formed through intermediate reinforcement. The dopamine spikes from unpredictable affection. Cortisol spikes through stress hormones during conflict or fear. Oxytocin release, bonding hormones after reconciliation or sexual contact. This creates a biochemical loop. Fear, relief, and attachments, fear again. The brain is confused intense with intimacy. Emotionally, trauma bonding often includes extremes, highs, and lows of obsessive attachment, fear of abandonment, realizing of harmful behavior, feeling unable to leave despite harm. The attachment system becomes dysregulated, often anxiety or disorganization attachments. Spiritually, trauma bonding often distorts identity, okay? Trauma bonding often distorts identity, which I need them to feel whole. Worth, if I endure, I'll be loved. God image, confusing love with suffering. Biblically warns against distorted attachments. Proverbs 22 through 24 through 25. So it's chapter 22, 24 through 25 warns about entanglement with destructive patterns. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and 33. Bad company corrupts good character. Trauma bond are rooted in fear and instability, not covenant. I'm going to say that again. If you are in a trauma bond situation, listen up. It is from rooted fear and instability. It's not covenant. What is godly covenant bonding? A godly covenant bonding is built on what? Safety, mature sacrifice, mutual sacrifice, emotional stability, consistently, sure submission to God. It reflects covenant, not chemistry alone. Neurologically, healthy bonding creates stable oxytocin patterns, safe attachments, reduced cortisol, calm nervous system, prefrontal lobe engagement, clarity, and discernment. These are all the things that the Bible tells us. Peace replaces adrenal. Peace replaces adrenal. Emotionally, covenant bondings include emotional safety, boundaries, accountability, repaired after conflict without mutilation. Repaired after conflict without mutilation. Freedom, not control. Spiritually, covenant mirrors Christ's love. I'm going to say that again. Spiritually, covenant mirrors Christ's love. Ephesians chapter 5:25. Love models after Christ's sacrificial care. Love models after Christ's sacrificial care. Genesis 2:24, two become one. Unity without loss of identity. If you're losing your identity in a relationship, a marriage, a friendship, this is a problem. This is not the mirroring of Christ. 1 John 4:18, perfect love casts out fears. So any type of fear that you came in with, it should be cast out by the love that you are mirroring from one another. Covenant bonding feels like this: steady, calm, deep, safe, not addictive. Nobody should be addicted to one another. I hear a lot of people say, oh, I love you so much, I wish I can be in your skin. You are addicted and you just became an addict of someone else. I'm going to say that again. You are addicted to the person and you just became an addict of someone else. That's just like drugs. That person is a drug to you. You need that person to live, breathe, survive, and whatever else. That should not be that type of bonding. Key differences: trauma bond, covenant bond. Trauma bond, rooted in fear. Covenant bond, rooted in love. Trauma bond, intense driven. Covenant bond, stabilized driven. Trauma bond, addictive cycles. Covenant bond, peaceful consistency. Trauma bond, boundaries, avoidant. Covenant bond, boundaries, honored. Trauma bond, identity confused. Covenant bond, identity preserved. Trauma bond, shame or presence. Covenant bond, grace presence. Trauma bond feels electric. Covenant bond feels secure. How generational sexual trauma patterns form. Learn attachment patterns. Children internalize relational templates by the age of 7. If a parent tolerates abuse, normalize infidelity, use sexual manipulation, suppresses emotion, the child inconsistently encodes, this is what love looks like. This becomes attractive wiring into adulthood. Biblical principles of generational patterns. Exodus chapter 22, 5 and 6. Consequences of sin impacts generations. Behavioral, not destiny. This reflects learning systems, not divine punishment. Nervous system inheritance. Trauma alters, stress regulates. Researches of this trauma says this affects response increase baseline anxiety in offsprings, alter cortisol regulation patterns. If a parent lives in a chronic hypervigilant, children often inherit an hyper threat sensitivity. Spiritual agreements and shame culture. Generational trauma persists when families carry silence around abuse, shame-based theologically, sexual secrecy, unrepetitive cycles where sacred existed dysfunctional multiplies. Biblically exposed principles. Ephesians chapter 5 and 11, expose works of darkness. John chapter 8, verses 32, truth set free. How generational patterns breaking cycles require work at 4 levels. 4 levels. Neurologically rewiring, trauma informs therapy. In the somatic therapist, safe relational experiences, consistent boundaries. Nervous system regulates practices, repeated, safe rewires attachment. Emotional renegotiation. Woo! I'm telling y'all, I get tongue twisted on these words. Naming family patterns clearly. Be honest with yourself. This is one thing that I had to be honest with when I suppressed a lot of things that came up, and I was like, wow, that really did. But if you talk about it, it won't be suppressed, and it's allowing you to have a release. Grieving what was not received. Rejecting false loyalty to dysfunction. Building new relative standards. We got to have a standard. We got to have a standard for us. That means we're supposed to be thinking about us first before we even put our minds to being with somebody. If we don't love ourselves, how can we love anybody else? And that's even with your children. That's whoever is around you that you want in your life. How do you think you're going to love them without loving you? Spiritual renouncement and reframing. Renouncing and reframing. Confusion and reannouncement of destruction patterns. Forgiving where possible, not excusing harm. It's good to forgive, but you don't have to excuse the behavior that was given out. Declaring new covenant identity. Biblical renewal. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17, new creation. Job 2 and 25, restoration of lost years. Practicing covenant instead of chemistry. Yo, I can talk about this. I'm literally serious. What I speak about, I had to deal with and go through myself. This is not a game. Covenant, you gotta be able to understand what is covenant and what is chemistry. You can have chemistry with anybody, but can you have covenant with anybody? No. There's no way that you can have covenant with everybody. You gotta be particular in everything you do. You have to be discerning of everything that you see. If you're not discerning, you'll miss it, and then you wind up back in the same old patterns that you used to be in, wondering why you there and you thought, but you did not discern. Thinking and discerning are two different aspects. I can think all day. I can think that I want a cup of coffee, but I'm not discerning. Is that going to be healthy for me? Is it going to upset my stomach? Am I going to have to go to the bathroom? You know, at the end of the day, you have to be discerning about everything that you deal with in your life. I don't care if it's eating, drinking, smoking, whatever the case may be. We have to be discerning. Is that healthy? Cussing. Is that good language? What would it project to somebody that hears me cussing? For me, if I hear it, I'm thinking you're not intelligent. because that is the least word that can be used, where there's so many definitions in the dictionary that you can use, which they have anonyms and synonyms for other words that you want to put in perspective. But you want to use a custom word. This is where discerning comes in. If I say this, would that be right? If I do this, would that be right? If I go there, would that be right? In everything we do, we have to recognize, is this the right way? Am I still going to be in the covenant? So we got to recognize covenant and study chemistry. Choose relationships based on character over charisma, consistency over intensity, peace over passion spikes. X, does this connection calm my nerve system and activate survival? Is I'm calm. You can have chemistry and covenant with somebody, but it just cannot be that chemistry alone. So you get the chemistry, you do your discernment. Is this bringing you covenant? Do you think you can have a covenant with this person? And then start putting your pros and cons down. What's outweigh? That's when you put your pros and cons down, you have a balance. You find balance with pros and cons. I take pieces of paper. I don't know how many papers I got up in there. But every day, if I got to think about something and I got to do something, I got a piece of paper and I'm putting pros and cons in everything I do. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to get got like I already got. That's my past. It will never come into my future. I don't care who the person is, what place or thing. I'm putting a pro and a con down. If my pros outweigh my cons, then I'm going for it. If my cons outweigh my pros, bye-bye. See you later. Adios. Arrivederci. You feel me? Yeah. So however you want to use goodbye, sayonara, or whatever have you, get that stuff in your mind. You have to find balance in everything that you do and everything that you say. Because at the end of the day, you got to have a standard and you got to have accountability. And if you think you don't have accountability for yourself, you find somebody to help you with the accountability. Hey, I need you as accountability partner. Can you make sure that? Can you see if that? Hey, God said about when 2 or 3 are what? Gather in his name, he will what? Be in the midst. So that's not wrong. It's right. But you just better make sure that accountability partner is doing exactly what you asked them to do. Because you're bringing them in on your system. You're not saying, hey, you want to be a part of the system. You're bringing them in. So you got to make sure that they are holding this accountability to a standard that you would. As though you were doing it for them. Okay? Final interrogation. Trauma bonding is building in chaos. It builds in chaos. Covenant bonding builds in safety. Generational sexual trauma forms thoughts like this. Learn relative blueprints. Dysregulated nervous system. Unspoken shame, spiritual distortion. It breaks through truth, safety, bonds, therapy, repentance, identity, restoration in Christ. You are not doomed to repeat inherited patterns. Generational trauma stored in the womb space. Biologically and impigmented pathways. Stress transmission. Chronic trauma alters cortisol regulations at the HPA axis. Elevated stress hormones during pregnancy can influence fetal nervous system development. In pigment genetics, research suggests trauma can influence gene expressions patterns, not DNA itself, but how genes activate, particularly self-response genes. This may increase anxiety sensitivity, hypovigilance, emotional reaction. Attachment modeling. A mother's unresolved trauma affects emotional availability, bonding patterns, nervous system co-regulation. Infants borrow their nervous system regulation from caregivers. Trauma can be transmitted relative before it is verbalized. the pelvic area holds trauma. Sexual and relative trauma often manifests as pelvic floor tension, reproduction dysfunction, lower abdominal numbness, chronic hip tightness. This is a nervous system guarding response. Biblical reassurance. Scriptures acknowledge generational consequences of brokenness, but as empathize redemption. Exodus 25-6, patterns affect generations. Ezekiel chapter 18:20, each person responds from their own life. Psalms 139:13, you knit me together in my mother's womb. The wound is portrayed as sacred and purposeful, not cursed. Trauma may influence, but it does not define destiny. Lust versus spiritual-led intimacy. Lust is desired disconnection from covenant. Dignity and self-control. Neurologically markers, dopamine-driven intensity, novelty, seeking behavior, objectification, escalation of patterns. Emotional markers, urgently, possessively, fantasy-driven attachments, emotional detachments after satisfaction. Spiritual warning. James 1:14-15. Desires when convinced, giving birth to sin. Matthew 5:28. Lust begins in the heart. Lust is self-focused gratitude. Spiritual-led intimacy. Spirit-led intimacy aligns desires with covenant, mutual honor, and self-giving love. Neurologically profile, oxytocin-based bonding, nervous system calming, consistently over intensity. Emotional markers, emotional safety, patience, respect of boundaries, desire interrogation with commitment. Spiritual model, Ephesians 5:25. Ephesians 5:25. Sacrificial love. 1 Corinthians 13:4-7. Love is patient, kind, spiritually led intimacy, bonding, lust consumes. Core differences. Lust versus spiritually led intimacy. Urgent, that's lust. Patient, spiritually led intimacy. Self-centered, lust. Others-centered, spiritually led intimacy. Intense but unstable, lust. Steady and secure, spiritually led intimacy. Shame afterwards, lust. Peace afterwards, spiritually led intimacy. Consumes, it's lust. Covenant is spiritual led intimacy. Signs of a spiritual manipulated sacral chakra. Spiritual manipulation happens when sexual, emotional, or spiritual language is used to control or distort intimacy. Warning signs: hypo-spiritualism, sexually gratification or justification. God told me we're connected, used to bypass boundaries. Who in the heck? I went through that. When you first meet a person, oh, God sent me to you. Oh, God led me to you. Oh, I felt the connection a mile away. Oh, they already trying to bypass your boundaries. They don't even know you from Adam or Eve. So how in the world? Now, this is where discernment come in. Oh, did he? Tell me what he said. How did he say it to you? When did you hear this? This is when your discernment start triggering. You don't allow nobody to bypass your boundaries when it comes to wanting to be with you in any type of capacity. Not at all. Your boundaries is everything. They even tell you just literally, you are in my space if you come past my hand. So if the world deems that as signs of spiritual manipulation through the sacral chakra. Spiritual manipulation happens when sexual, emotional, or spiritual language is used to control or distort intimacy. Warning signs: hyper-spiritualism, sexual gratification. God told me we're connected. Used to bypass boundaries. Calling chemistry, soul ties to pressure, intimacy. Shame-based control, using purity language to introduce fear or silence. Associating normally desires with moral failures. Emotional dependency frames as destiny. Calming divine assignment to excuse unhealthy attachments. Sexually used as power. Seduction for validation. Intimacy as leverage. Biblically, protection principles. 1 John 4:1. Test the spirits. Galatians 5:13. Do not use freedom to indulge in flesh. Manipulation produces confusion, pressures, or fear, not peace. How the sacral chakra connects to the root chakra. This is very important. Remember, we're talking about alignment. So remember, once you heal one, go to the next. Once you heal that one, go to the next. You got to find which chakra is out of balance. You have to find these things because at the end of the day, when you find that a chakra is out of balance, you find that you out of alignment with God. And it's up for you to cure it. Nobody else can cure it but you. So you have to find what's going on with you. And look up at the chakras and see which chakra deals with that area. That is the area that you need to heal. Okay? How the chakra system connects to the root chakra. The root chakra, safety, survival, stability, is the foundation. The sacral chakra, it deals with emotion, pleasure, and intimacy, building upon it. If the root is unstable, the sacral chakra becomes dysregulated. Say it again. If the root chakra is unstabilized, the sacral chakra becomes dysregulated. Intimacy feels safe. Pleasure feels threatening. Attachments becomes anxiety, obnoxious, and avoidant. If the root chakra is secure, emotional flow, safety, intimacy feels grounded, desire is integrated, not chaos. Psychologically, explanation. Safety is the root. Must exist before vulnerability, which is the sacral chakra. So, men that don't like to be vulnerable, their root chakra is unstabilized. That they mean they can't talk to a female. They don't even want to try to be understood in certain capacities because they feel overwhelmed or somebody took advantage of them and they come in a relationship feeling like, oh, I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to talk. I'm going to allow her to talk. I'm going to allow her to say whatever she wants. Blah, 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 blah. Heck, the root chakra is not balanced. Just not. Trauma to early attachments, roots to insecurities often leads to trauma bonding, sexual impulsivity, fear of abandonment, emotional instabilized. Biblical parallels, foundation precedes unity. Matthew 7, chapter 7, 24-25, house built on a rock. Genesis 2:24, Leave and cleave. Secure identity before union. Without foundation, intimacy collapses into chaos. Interrogation conclusion. Generational trauma. Everybody that's coming on, I do apologize. Somebody was coming in and I hit the wrong thing. I told everybody that I was going to stop doing co-hosts because now it's getting to the point that I need, like, people book me to help them. I cannot have no type of interference that comes on. You need to hear what you need to hear, okay? So, without foundation, intimacy collapses into chaos. All right, interrogation conclusion. Generational trauma influence nervous system and attachment patterns. But it is not destiny. Lust is intensity without covenant. Spiritually led is desired under love and discipline. Spiritual manipulation distorts sexual activity through fear and control. The sacred dimension depends on rooted security. Safety before surrender. When healed, the body feels safe. Desires is clean. Intimacy is covenant. Identity is restored. The nervous system rests. Signs your sacral dimension is being restored. It always give you telltale signs of understanding. Remember, I got telltale signs that this such and such a person is doing it. Your body gives out this same rhythm. It goes along with the whole process of being aligned and being balanced, okay? Restoration in the sacral dimension shows up in the nervous system, emotions, relationship, body, and in your spiritual life. You have 5 areas that this one system show up in. Dysfunction, imbalance, or balance, or in covenant. But like I said before, it's up to you to do your due diligence of knowing where you stand with alignment and balance. The neurologic signs of restoration, sexual or relational trauma, dysfunctional or dysregulated, the brain's threatens and reward system. Healing reflects the nervous system stabilization. Your body feels safer, reduces hypervigilance around intimacy. Less startle response to relational triggers. Pelvic and lower abdominal tension softens. You can stay present in your body during emotional closeness. This affects improvement regulations between the amygdala, fear center, prefrontal lobe cortex, reasoning and discernment. Vagus nerve calming system. Your nerve system no longer confuses intimacy with danger. Triggers losing their intimacy. Memories feeling like past events rather than present events or present threats. You can pause before reacting. Emotional flooding decrease. Disassociation reduces. This suggests trauma memory interrogating in the hippocampus. Your response instead of reacting. Pleasure feel calm instead of overstimulating. Before healing, pleasure may feel compulsive or numbing and inaccessible. After you are restored, desire feels steady. Your experience is joy without shame. Intimacy does not create inner chaos. Dopamine and oxytocin patterns stabilize rather than spike and crash. Emotional signs of restoration. Shame is replaced with compassion. You are no longer define yourself by what happened to you, what you did in survival mode, past relative patterns. Instead, you speak about your story without collapsing. That means crying about it. You talking and you have what you have on your heart to say without getting emotional. It should not be an emotional base. It should be able to be taught, and somebody should be able to be learned from your trauma experience. Okay? You feel sadness without self-hatred. Biblical grounding, Romans 8:1, no condemnation in Christ. Boundaries become natural. You want them to become natural. You say no without panic. You don't over-explain yourself. You no longer chase emotional unavailability. People, please, people, stop getting these people that is not emotionally attached. They just want to lay with you without having a present mindset. Who wants that? You recognize the red flags before they come because you already experienced it, or you already know something that you have seen before. Emotional flow returns. You can cry without shutting down. You can laugh freely. Creativity returns. You feel emotionally alive rather than being numb. The water element flow is restoration psychologically. Remember I said when you cry, you release. Men, gentlemen, kings, come on. You can cry. It's okay to cry. Be vulnerable. Be vulnerable. If you can't be vulnerable with nobody else, be vulnerable with yourself. It's a you and God thing. Cry. Shed some tears. Release that mess. Physical signs of restoration. Reduces pelvic floor tension. Improves hormonal stability when stress was a factor. Better sleep after intimacy instead of anxiety. Lower back and hip relaxation. More grounded posture. The body no longer lives in chronic guarding mode. You don't have to guard you because you already are whole. There's no guarding necessary. Spiritual signs of restoration. Sexual trauma often distorts spiritual perception of intimacy and identity. Healing restoration. Healing restores clarity. You can experience attraction without compulsion, fantasy, obsession, self-condemnation. Desires feel aligned rather than fragment. Biblical alignment. 1 Corinthians 6, chapter 19 through 20. Body as temple. You no longer confuse intensity with God. You discern emotional highs from spiritual truth. You test spiritual language used in relationships. 1 John 4:1. Test the spirit. Spiritual manipulation lose its pull. Peace replaces chaos in relationships. You are drawn to stability over drama. You value character over chemistry. You choose covenant over adrenal. 1 Corinthians 14:33. God is not a God of confusion, but of peace. If you see you are in a relationship and you're dealing with drama, you're dealing with confusion, and you're dealing with mouth and things that you really just despise, you got to know that you attracted that. That means, remember, like attracts like. Dislike attract dislike. Birds of a feather flock together. So if you're in a relationship and you're looking at that person, just know you are mirroring that person. You don't pick up what you're not, you pick up what you are. I'm going to say that again. You do not pick up what you're not. You pick up what you are. Relational indicators. You know healing is happening when you no longer tolerate emotional violence as normal. You don't feel addicted to someone. You walk away from misalignment. You don't lose your identity in connection. Love feels steady, not intoxicating. Internal experiences of restoration. A healed sacral dimension feels like this. Calm, warm in the lower abdominal instead of tightness. Emotional steadiness. Joy without guilt. Creativity without pleasure. Intimacy without fear. Desire integrity with self-control. You feel grounded and open at the same time. What restoration does not mean. Healing does not mean you never get triggered again. You have no sexual desire. You feel perfect confidence. It means triggers are manageable. Desires is integrated. Shame no longer controls you. Interrogated summary, neurologically, stores feel fear, circuit calm, memory, interrogation, hormones stabilizing, pleasure is regulated, spiritually restores, identity redeemed, shame broken, intimacy purified, covenant values, peace governed desires. Those of you that have been in sexual traumatic disruptions in your childhood, God bless you. I hope that God heals you in its wholeness. All that He has designed for you, you able to do, and you able to remove everything that's not like Him, and be able to heal the broken wounds within your life. You looking at someone that got over the same aspect. I suppressed it for years until somebody brought it to my attention. How them apples look. You suppressed it, you don't even think about it, you don't even recognize it, but then somebody texts you with mess talking about the issue, and then you got relieved something that you didn't even blot out your mind. That was hell for me. But at the end of the day, I can say I'm healed. I can say that I am delivered, and I can say I am made whole. That's why healing calls for separation. No matter what type of healing you need to be separate from others to be able to heal. Because what's happening is when you're around others, there's no time for healing. There's no time to see about you. There's no time to think about you because you are engulfed in somebody else's issues or somebody else's problems or somebody else's situation. But at the end of the day, you matter. You matter. And if nobody ever told you that you matter, I'm telling you now. You matter. Man, boy, girl, queen, king, princess, prince. You matter. At the end of the day, you want to look at yourself and say, no matter how my life went prior to now, I am redeemed. No matter how you got your redemption, you can feel whole and secure within yourself and know it's the truth. I am redeemed. No matter what the issue or the circumstances may be, you are redeemed. You got to trust that when you align with God in every fashion, shape, form, that He's going to align you up with everything that is destined for you, no matter what happened or transpired in your life prior to now. No matter what the chaos was, no matter what the confusion was, no matter shadow of I don't care what it was. You have to recognize that nothing happens without purpose. Nothing happens because it wasn't. It was God ordained. I promise you. Everything that happens in your life is God ordained. Can you bring me out that folder? They got these type of papers in it, please. I'm going to give you a prayer for the root and the sacral chakra. And I'm coming on tomorrow to give you the next chakra. Okay. Give me a minute. I do apologize. Maya, I need that folder. It's still in there. I think it's in that one. You done with these? I'm not looking at it. I'm sorry, y'all. Hi, Star Baby 1728. How you doing? Hold on. I got it on it. Hold on. I'm keeping my laptop. I thought I printed out. Sorry. I'm gonna receive it. They have papers I do. I know them papers in there.
It's been
Why you asking me something that's in your folder? I texted to you.
You need to do it to me.
And why would you come over here when I'm online? You disrespectful.
No.
Go ahead, kid. Go ahead somewhere.
I'm going to read it. So it's time to get asked. I'm already at it. If I can get a haircut before I leave.
turn it up. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't like when I do all this stuff. I think I'm gonna have to give it to you tomorrow when I come on here, because I usually have it printed out when you already up, and I don't want to hold you. It's already almost 3:30. Oh yeah. All right, so I'm gonna have to give it to you tomorrow because you might want to bring a pad or just like put it to the point of where you can have it in front of you. I'm gonna post it to you as well. Also, everything that I talk about on here, like I said, you can go back onto YouTube. It should be starting this month to be uploaded, and you can go back and like pause it and things of that sort. So the whole chakra system will be up there. That will be the first thing that be put on the YouTube channel. Of course, it's going to be What's the Tea with Divine. I'll put up the symbol and everything once I get everything established, and we're going to go from there. But I started the same way. I didn't know what was going on at the time that God was allowing me to be in balance. I started from religion, which was wild because this was something that I never, they tell you not to believe in it, but they tell you because they don't know. But when you find out, my thing is, when you know better, you do better. So when you do better, you understand better. And when you understand better, you know that you become wiser of intelligence, because at the end of the day, nobody can fool you. Nobody can put you in a way that you don't understand what's going on. So at the end of the day, align yourself from your root to your chakra. We're going to unpack the next chakra, which is your solar plexus. It deals with your power. It deals with understanding who you are, what you bring to the table with any and everything. So we want to unpack the solar plexus on tomorrow. We already dealt with the root. We already dealt with the sacral system. So the next one up is the solar plexus. Until next time, this is Divine Due Diligence signing off on tonight. Like I said, I do apologize that I kept you on hanging with that last little bit. I will put it up or redo it too as well to make sure it's all put together so that video won't be partial. So that'll probably be a little long video, but it'll keep you going. But at the end of the day, peace, love, and namaste.
Well, it's time for me to sign up. I want to say peace, love, and namaste.